Right, hi everyone. My name's Joss, and I'm from the JO55SS channel. Of course, it's just me. I can't pay or afford anybody else, so it's just me. And today I'm going to be doing my first ever live stream. Now, apologies if I'm a little bit rusty in this sense, because this is my first. I'm not that great at YouTube. I'm plastered in spots everywhere you look. And really, this is going to be more me waffling and kind of wondering if anybody's here or not. Apparently, we've got one viewer, and that's probably just my mum. So, well, now we've not got one viewer, but still. But I feel as though the transfer window is something that we need to talk about. This is probably the biggest transfer window that many of you will have seen, probably in your lifetimes. It's definitely going to be the biggest one in a decade. And yeah, I know Mbappe and Haaland didn't go anywhere, but they were very, very close. And I think this needs analysing from the larger perspective of money, as well as the Premier League. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be rating each club's kind of transfer window, and I'm going to be predicting how each club will do. I know this is a little bit late, but who cares? I'm doing it anyway. So I hope you guys all enjoy the stream, and I feel as though it's just going to be chill. It's just going to be me kind of talking, probably just to myself. I'm probably going to end up with 0 viewers for most of the time. If we could get 10 viewers, then I'm happy. And if you've got any questions or points to make, then just post them in the live chat feed. I think slow mode's on, so you can only send a message every 10 seconds and ask to stop the spam. But anyway, yeah, I feel as though some of the biggest transfers that we've seen this time around are free agents, and I think that is going to be the case next year as well. Because, well, first of all, the key one is Messi. So, of course, as most of you, or if not all of you, probably know, Lionel Messi finally left Barcelona in quite an emotional farewell and went to Paris Saint-Germain. Now, yeah, it's a free transfer, but there's still a lot of expense with his wages and things, and signing on fees, and probably agent fees as well, which is definitely something to consider. I think it depends, because in these first few games, he has been sat on the bench. Now, obviously, that's because of travel and jet lag and being tired and just generally that sort of thing. But if he becomes kind of not a starter, because even though he is, I know this is a weird thing to say, but even though he is Lionel Messi, he is not a guaranteed starter in that PSG starting lineup. If they go with 2 strikers or 1 striker, if they change the formation at all, then there is a chance that one of Neymar, Mbappe, or indeed Messi end up missing out on that. But that is only chance and a small bit of speculation, or rather a larger bit of speculation on my part. Now, I feel it wasn't just Messi who was a free transfer. It wasn't just Messi for PSG. And here's where both of these things kind of really come together. Because PSG, I know they bought Nuno Mendes on, I think that was just a loan. But it's within option to buy for 40 million, I've heard. Did they buy him? I can't quite remember. I've just been thinking about the stream kind of all day and what I'm going to say, but yeah. So PSG have signed Messi. They've also signed Achraf Hakimi from Inter Milan, who was a huge part of that team, and he's now been replaced by Denzel Dumfries. I don't really know what to make of that, since Dumfries was really good at the Euros, and I know this because I had him in my fantasy league team. He was really good, especially on the attacking side, and probably will be a good replacement for Hakimi. I don't think he's as good as Hakimi, but he'll be a decent enough replacement based off of his international form. But as we know, probably with somebody like Jordan Pickford, then there's definitely a contrast between international form and club form, and there's definitely an inconsistency that may need to be flagged there with Dumfries. And at club level, he hasn't particularly been outstanding. He's been good enough, but he has only been playing in the Eredivisie, and as we've seen with Donny van de Beek, it's a roll of the dice as to whether he'll even play. But I think Inter Milan is going to be quite an interesting one on the front of a rebuild, because they have lost so many of their key players. Now they've lost Lukaku, they've lost Hakimi. They're probably going to, well, Eriksen is probably not going to play again. And it will be interesting, or it has been interesting, to see how they've actually coped with that. And they look more than likely to lose Lautaro Martinez as well. I feel as though, I don't know, it's a bit of a difficult one, especially in Serie A, where half the players seem to be jumping ship every 2 minutes, or saying, yes, I'm going to sign a contract, and then not signing that contract and moving somewhere else. And that isn't just Messi. I know he's in the French league. I know he's in Ligue 1, but Ronaldo as well. And I think that was quite a good segue as to Ronaldo he did sign a contract, and, well, he wanted to sign a contract anyway, but he did sign a contract, and that contract was with Manchester United. Now, I'm really, really happy about this. As you probably guessed by now, I'm a Manchester United fan, and I was over the moon when this happened. I just was. I could not stop thinking about it. I could not stop saying it. It was all over my Twitter. All you could see was just retweets of Ronaldo everywhere. So everything on that sort of front for United, and probably for Ronaldo, is probably for the better. I know I've just said probably a million times, but oh well, it's a stream. I'll do what I want. £5 per dab. No, I'm joking. But Ronaldo has agreed to take a bit of a pay cut. Okay, that's understandable. But that says something about the sort of wages that footballers are on nowadays, where they can say, oh yes, I'm taking a pay cut, but it's a pay cut from £500,000 a week to £380,000 a week. I think something needs to be sorted out there. There are a few other kind of really high-profile transfers that were made outside of the Premier League, which are some of the other ones I'm going to cover as much as I can. I mean, as much as I can waffle as to what's going to happen. Oh my God, we have 4 viewers. Prototype says, "How are you?" in the chat. I'm very well, thank you. And I'm just really happy to be doing the stream. I've wanted to do it for a bit. I've had this as an idea in my head. I wanted to do it like properly yesterday, and I was thinking about doing it yesterday. And as soon as I clicked yes, then YouTube just went, well, you need to be authenticated, or you need to be authorized to stream, which will take 24 hours. So yeah, that's why I'm doing this today. And I think this is something that I not only care about, but it's something that I just find interesting as a whole. With the sheer amount of money that's been spent this window, I mean, and I don't just mean on wages, on signing on fees, on agents' fees, which is mainly what scuppered the Haaland transfer, or may prevent the Haaland transfer in future with Mino Raiola, and probably with Mbappe as well. But on the front of Mbappe, there has been a £190 million bid rejected for Mbappe by PSG from Real Madrid, and just the fact that a player from nigh on nowhere has come to that kind of front, and a player in the final year of his contract. I know you want £190 million. I know my comment section. But a player that has been at that level for so long, and let's be honest, it's Ligue 1. Ligue 1 is competitive, but it's not as competitive as, say, La Liga, probably Bundesliga, or the Premier League. And I think it's definitely something to point out that he was in the last year of his contract. Now, this obviously just means that he's going to be going on free next summer. There's no question of that, almost. And I can definitely see something happening where, I don't know, to secure him, they might have to pay some sort of compensation, but it'll probably be in the form of a swap deal. The very least we know is that he's not going to Barcelona. I mean, Barcelona are in loads and loads of financial troubles right now, and that I will probably cover in another video. But just the fact that they have had to bring in Luke de Jong on loan and have now had to sell Griezmann back to Atletico Madrid for a possible £40 million. I think that is really something that is quite sad. It's quite sad, and it was quite sad for Lionel Messi to make the emotional farewells that he made. I mean, this is, although, let's not forget, this is a man on more than £500,000 a week at Barcelona. So I know he agreed to take a pay cut, but La Liga financial regulations, they're just weird. I don't really know, and yeah, there's that. On the front of free transfers, I know Donnarumma joined PSG as well, as did Ramos and Wijnaldum from Liverpool. And I think Liverpool's transfer activity is something we're going to come on to later, but they have been relatively quiet. I know Harvey Elliott is good in that winger position, but I think there is more pressing problems in the midfield. I know you were trying to move for Sol, as Man United were as well, and I'm still sad that we didn't get him. But oh well, you do need a replacement for Wijnaldum, and we need to see how that kind of goes. I think, well, I'm now starting to get people in my comments. Oh my god. Please send me questions instead of just putting Cheeto. Okay. But I think something I want to touch on is the amount of players that have been released or are no longer like viable to actually be kept by the clubs, either on a financial level. Now, obviously, you've had the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, it doesn't seem to have affected this transfer window. If anything, this spending more than ever, and it's still hard to comprehend or even to believe, or whatever word you want to chuck around, really, as to why Arsenal still have the highest net spend of the whole lot. And I think just the fact that they've spent that on the periphery players mainly is a bit of a shame, but it's a sign of the kind of world we live in. Money talks. And it's definitely important to point out that it wasn't just Arsenal. But in this world of coronavirus where people are being laid off, it's been fairly routine for footballers. It's been fairly normal. If anything, it's higher than ever in terms of the wages they're getting. But opinions on Marmite. I like Marmite. I just want to clarify that. I do like Marmite. I hope loads of you don't leave my stream now out of hate for Marmite. I like Marmite. And speaking of Marmite, we've got a very love or hate player that has been transferred and is kind of making the headlines a little bit for the transfer. And I want to talk about the Messi-Ronaldo debate really, really quickly, which is that I think Ronaldo has probably gotten, as football players, I think Ronaldo has a lot more flair, but Messi is more consistent. But as for records, Ronaldo has broken more. It's whatever metric you want to use. I'm a bit on the fence a little bit as to Messi and Ronaldo. I think they're two very Marmite players, and I've seen all this stuff about on Twitter about the like Penaldo, which links into Penandes and all the rest of that. It's like, stop it, just stop it. There's no point. Penaldo is not top 10 in my book. So there's that. But there's also, there have been a few weird transfers, I think. I'm sorry, that was a voice crack, but I'm sorry. There has been a few weird transfers, I think, and that extends just beyond the free ones. I think there have been some weird projects as a whole as well, as in like rebuild projects and things. Definitely in terms of managerial appointments as well. I mean, Bruno Lage is a bit of a weird appointment at Wolves, but we're going to get onto that later on. I'm kind of running out of material for this kind of section of the stream. So I'm just going to talk about all the players who have been, all the kind of major Championship and Premier League players who have been released, or who I know have been released, and kind of which sort of clubs they would suit. So I feel as though you've got Daniel Sturridge, who's been out of the wilderness for a while, and he could easily go to a Championship club. I think he could do quite well at somewhere like Nottingham Forest. It's a very Nottingham Forest sort of transfer. And in the same sense, Howard Robson-Kanu could also do quite well at a Championship or League One side. And I think that's kind of all we have in the striking department right now in terms of free agents. But in addition to them, I feel as though the most serious one to really talk about right now, who actually is Premier League kind of experienced, is Serge Arya. Now, you may have been thinking, well, he played quite a lot last season. Well, he's obviously been he's obviously had his contract terminated by Spurs because of the arrival of Emerson. Not to be confused with Chelsea's Emerson. This is a different Emerson, who is also a wing back. So I kind of understand this, but I don't know why the Spurs couldn't have just sold him. Because between Arya, Alderweireld, and a few others, you've only got about 10 million, if that, to show, which you haven't been able to put to any real players other than loan deals and the odd youngster like Brian Hill, where obviously you've had to use Eric Lamela in a swap deal. And I think it'll be interesting to see how Spurs get on in particular. There aren't many other free agent players to really talk about. There have been some interesting signings in the Championship and League One, such as Ipswich making 18, and that is including loans and free transfers as well. So I don't know what to make of that either. The proof's in the pudding in the bottom half of League One right now. So I feel as though at this point we're about 17 minutes in. I don't know how I've managed to talk for this long. You've probably heard me gulp. You've probably heard me think. I'm probably not doing a very good job. Please let me know in the comments. Please also make sure to keep just bombarding me with questions instead of Cheeto and Doritos. I think we've got a bit of a debate going on in the chat. So, in terms of Premier League transfers, we're going to start with Arsenal because we're just going to be doing it alphabetically. Or maybe we should do it from the bottom up. So, Arsenal, Norwich. Oh, wait, do you think Arsenal will get relegated? Okay, we're getting onto that later. Don't worry, we're getting onto that later. So, I definitely think Arsenal have had a weird window. And I'm not saying that in the fully good sense. I'm probably saying that in a more critical sense. Plus, I kind of like making fun of Arsenal. I mean, who doesn't? Apart from Piers Morgan. So, in terms of the money they've spent around £150 million, which is a lot, regardless of how much it is as opposed to other clubs where it's the most in the Premier League. It's still a lot, and I don't really know who you've really got to show for it. Now, Nuno Tavares is a left back, and he's a young left back at that, and I think he can also function as a right back, but you'll have to check me with that on that, whether he's a left back or a right back. But he's a definite wing back. He's for more squad depth than anything, and I don't really know why you need squad depth in either position when you've got players like Ainsley Maitland-Niles that want to leave because they're not being played. You've got Callum Chambers, Hector Bellerin, who's now been sent out on loan. You've got plenty of depth in those two areas. You've got arguably more depth in there than you have in any other aspect of your squad, other than perhaps your goalkeeper. And the goalkeeper is, well, the second choice goalkeeper is now Aaron Ramsdale, who Arsenal brought in for around £24 million, I think. Oh, no, I got that wrong. They sold Martinez for £24 million and brought in Ramsdale for 30 million, I'm pretty sure. And I don't really see how this makes sense. I think Ramsdale needed more experience to develop. I don't know whether they're going to send him out on loan or what, but they've sent Alex Runarsson away. He wasn't the best number two, but he was good enough, and you could have at least got somebody in like on loan as a number two, I guess, if you wanted to transfer him or send him out on loan. Like you did with Matt Ryan last season. I think there was no need to make any sort of permanent signing. I think the Blades are going to be rubbing their hands together because they've now got £30 million to play around with, and they're in the Championship, and £30 million in the Championship gets you quite a lot. Plus the quite a lot of money from the Premier League, from being in the Premier League and sponsorships they got, and the TV revenue as well. Obviously, they're going to get that in the Championship too, but it's going to be very, very far diminished. Sofa Can Old, I think that's my friend Louis actually, has said, thoughts on Dan James going to Leeds? Now, thank you for this question. It's the first question I've had all night, other than I prefer Doritos. I think Dan James going to Leeds is quite a good transfer in principle. I think he is quite young and hungry, and he has got a work rate that many would be quite jealous of. He worked really, really hard for United, and I don't know whether I'm necessarily sad to see him go, but I'm kind of happy that he's getting more chances, or that he would be getting more chances elsewhere. I think with somebody like Rafinha around him, he could really develop into a player of real immense quality, and under Bielsa's system of mainly counter-attacks that's largely dependent on pace, Bielsa ball, I think he could really flourish. And I know this is a record fee for Leeds, but I think it's pretty good for all parties. You've got Dan James getting game time, you've got Leeds getting a fairly cheap buy that they've always kind of had their eye on, and who's going to flourish under their system, probably score quite a few as well. And you've got United getting a £30 million paycheck that's going to pay for Ronaldo, or alternately, if you wanted to look at it in a different way, pay for somebody like Neves in that CDM role. But I know the proof's in the pudding, but I will say that this transfer, I really like this transfer. I think it's going to be really good for his career as well. So, to continue on about Arsenal, I know I like to waffle a bit about Arsenal, but in addition to Tavares and Ramsdale, they also signed Ben White for £50 million. Now, a lot of you will know this, and I think I said this in my Grealish video, which if you haven't seen, go check that out. Shameless plug. And while we're here, subscribe. I'm sorry. But Ben White to Arsenal for £50 million. Now, I honestly thought this would be an okay transfer. I think with some more experience around him, with like Donk and Webster and probably even Dan Burn, he was getting the sort of mentoring that he really needed. He was getting to show more leadership, and he just doesn't have as much of a support system around him at Arsenal anymore, I don't think. And I know they've now got young, hungry players like Saka and Smith Rowe, but I think White is going to struggle to really be that much of a leader in that Arsenal team, especially when it comes to the defence, which is arguably the most important aspect of a team as for its leadership. I know Granit Xhaka is the captain, but half the time he's getting sent off. So you need to really have a decent enough vice captain with leadership, and you need somebody who's really going to inspire confidence in the defence. And I don't think Arsenal really have that because they're rotating their right backs every week. They're sending players like Bellerin on loan, who probably, I'd say, has the leadership of a wet sausage roll. And then in defence, David Luiz was... all Ben White really is a replacement for David Luiz, and a very, very expensive one. That I'm not saying he's not decent, because he definitely was at Brighton, but he hasn't really shown his skill at Brighton at Arsenal. And I think that kind of reminds me of the Callum Chambers transfer, personally. Somebody from a lower or mid-table club in the Premier League who got transferred to Arsenal and just proceeded to not really stand out in any particular way. I think clubs sometimes do have this problem, but I think when you're spending enough money, like 50 million, you need that sort of guarantee in that role, and you need to make sure that everything about that player is sound, and or at least will develop. Although maybe if you're paying £50 million, do you really want a youngster who is a huge gamble? I don't think so. And I know people are going to say Maguire as well, but I rate Maguire. Like, Maguire is good. I really rate him. Like, I wasn't really thinking that he was that good when he first joined, mainly because there was a big spotlight on the fee. But he really has developed, and now he's the club captain. He's got a level of responsibility, and he's got Varane right beside him to really fill in the duties of Lindelof. And he was also quite good with Lindelof. He was easily the star defensively, and that is even with Luke Shaw in his kind of recent form. But yeah, Ben White is not only a risk, but also somebody to kind of heed kind of a bit of a warning of maybe a move upwards the league isn't necessarily a good idea. And on that front, Danny Drinkwater. Now, we haven't heard from Danny Drinkwater for absolutely ages. Now, I bet you're wondering where Danny Drinkwater has gone on loan. Now, comment that down below if you're still watching, which is going to be very, very few people because I've been waffling on for like 26 minutes, and it's probably getting a bit tiresome to watch. I don't know. I'm getting viewers coming in and out, but not very many. I'm kind of happy to just be doing this, seeing how things go. But yeah, comment down below where you think Danny Drinkwater has gone to on loan, and I'll tell you in a few minutes. On the front of Arsenal, I know I still haven't finished talking about them, but I want to bring up Tomiyasu. I think, well, Lokonga is a midfielder. He's a midfielder. I don't think he's going to improve the squad right now, but could be quite a good transfer for the future. And Odegaard, I didn't really see what was so special about Odegaard last season. Frankly, I think Smith Rowe made a bit more of a contribution, but I think the most interesting transfer here is probably Takaya Tomiyasu. Now, I did mention him, I'm pretty sure, in the Grealish video, where I said that Aston Villa was probably okay if they tried to sign him as kind of a long-term replacement for Mings, or to form kind of a back three with Mings and Konza sort of thing. And I think the similar sort of theory can be applied here. Now, I know that most of you will be probably saying in the comments, or you'll say to me at school, or whatever, you'll say, oh, but he's a right back. Okay, yeah, I understand. I totally understand that he is a right back, but he can also function pretty well as a centre back, and I think he provides the necessary. You've got too many right backs already. As I've already discussed, you've got way too many right backs, and I don't think you've really got enough centre backs. I know you've got Saliba on loan. Has he been spat out on loan to Marseille again? Why? But I think if you played Tomiyasu as a centre back, I think that'd be quite a good back three. I know it's a young back three, but that just means that they're more hungry and they might be more likely to learn from each other. So if you had a back three and these are interchangeable, Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel, and Saliba, then they'd be interchangeable, of course, depending on fitness, injury, etc. I think that could really open the door to a lot of new potential transfers, and that they could just do really well out of that. I think it also means that they're going to be looking for more depth in the midfielder position, because they've got nobody other than real Xhaka and probably Odegaard who stands out in that area. And Xhaka only really stands out for his aggression and however many red cards he's got. I'll probably have to Google that in a second. And a 3-4-3, I think, could really work for Arsenal. Next up, we have Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa have probably had one of the most interesting transfer windows of the whole lot. And I think that is largely down to the departure of Grealish. Now, as I explained in my Grealish video, if you've seen that, or if you've not seen that, please do check it out, but do it after the stream. Do it after the stream. Please watch my stream. I need the viewers. I'm on 3 viewers. Thank you. But Aston Villa have made a few signings. Now, chiefly, they made Ashley Young on a free. Now, he could be quite good. He is 35, so I don't really know. I think Aston Villa might be one of the sides that might be trying to go in for Arya as kind of previously kind of discussed. And because even if they sign him on a free, he'll provide enough contingency for if Young or Target or both of them were to get injured or were to get transferred elsewhere, or if Young was going to play in a different position. Now he's been playing in a different position for most of his time at Inter Milan. So I think that could be an interesting transfer more than anything. You've also signed Danny Ings, fairly run-of-the-mill striker from Southampton. Has scored in his first few games. And now I know one of those was a penalty, but he still did quite well. Does seem to be in good form. Personally, I would have preferred if they'd have signed Abraham. And because Abraham's gone to Roma, it makes it a little bit difficult with the buyback fee and everything. But for Chelsea, well, I think Tammy would have really done well and excelled at Aston Villa. I think something would have definitely happened that would benefit him, whether it be working with Watkins or being fed by Buendia or any of that. And on that front, I feel as though it's kind of obligatory to talk about the fact that Arsenal have signed Emi Buendia from Norwich. Now, looks to be quite a good signing. I'm still here. I'm still streaming. But yeah, I think Buendia could be quite handy. So we'll give this one a solid 7 out of 10. Thank you. You are looking well buff, mate. Jesus Christ. I don't think so. My hair looks like a dead rat. So next up, I think Brentford. Now, obviously, they're a newly promoted club, so they're going to have to make some sort of signing. Now, they've made the fewest signings of the newly promoted clubs. I'm pretty sure Watford have made 11 and Norwich have made 12. Brentford have made less than that. They've really only signed Christopher Arya from Celtic, who I quite like because he can function as a midfielder or as a centre-back. Could be quite good. I feel as if Brentford's squad is probably the most prepared, despite the fact that they did finish the lowest down the championship of the 3 promoted clubs because they didn't get automatic promotion, had to go through the playoffs. But that just shows the amount of hunger and drive that they really have. I don't really have a lot to say necessarily about Brentford. I know they let go Emiliano Marcondes on free, which I couldn't really understand because he really was a key player. So I don't know how they're going to hold up in midfield. But as for what they've been doing on the strike front and quite well defensively, I mean, they beat Arsenal 2-0. I wasn't really that shocked. Arsenal do have a habit of doing that. I just want to put that out there. But next up, I think Brighton. Brighton haven't signed a lot. They've signed Jeremy Sarmiento from Benfica, who's a youngster who's going to play in their youth, more one for the future. Could be quite a good signing, but it'll take a few years. Same sort of thing with a lot of their existing players, actually. Now, the key thing about Brighton's window is, once again, a player sale. Now, they've sold Ben White, and I think that isn't going to affect them too badly. I think the biggest thing they've got to worry about is their aging defence. They will be soon with the likes of Dunk and Burn, and Duffy as well, who has actually been doing quite well recently. But I think Graham Potter knows how to mould a team defensively and to kind of work that team in order to bring about the best possible results, even when there's no sort of, even when they've got the highest amount of XG in the league. They just need a solid finisher, and I think they could be doing quite well. Another thing that controlled Brighton's window quite a lot was the rumours surrounding Ives Zuma. I'm pretty sure that is the only reason why they signed Enoch Nwepu from Salzburg as a kind of a replacement. But I think these two playing in the midfield together would really work quite well. From what I've seen of them play, they have been generally quite good. So I think he's quite a good signing. The other real signing they made was Mark Cucarella, who I've heard is going to Coventry on loan, but I don't completely know that. And I think I don't really have much to say on Brighton's front because it was a pretty run-of-the-mill win. Obviously, they still have the Ben White money, which they could use to put into a striker. because Neil Maupay, I'm pretty sure, has a lot of he has a lot of aggression. He's kind of known for getting red cards, and he's only really known for scoring against Arsenal. I think he needs to be replaced. As does Danny Welbeck. He's okay, but he is aging. I think he could probably be sold before it's too late, and he ends up going on free. Next up, I think Chelsea are quite important in the sense that, they did sign Romelu Lukaku for £97 million, or thereabouts. I think that's plus add-ons as well. But I think this isn't as ridiculous as people think, mainly because of their net spend, mainly because of the fact that they sold Abraham and quite a few other players as well as promoting Chalobah from within, which I quite like because he has done quite well in the Premier League. I think Lukaku could be quite good and could be the missing piece to their title challenge, but it's definitely going to be an interesting title challenge this season with both Chelsea, Manchester United, and probably Manchester City as well, ready to challenge. Liverpool, I wouldn't say are quite there yet. I know they've got roughly the same squad as what they had when they won it, but their squad is aging, is susceptible to injury as we saw last season, and is lacking in the midfielder position, and it's got a front three that all kind of that are all about to turn 30. So there is that. And I think Chelsea may have found the missing piece, but it's going to be very, very close. Obviously, they've still got a lot of squad depth with Thiago Silva still kind of there, almost like Branislav Ivanovic kind of thing at West Brom. But yeah, could have been improved upon. I think the window. I think they had enough money to do that, especially with their net spend being so low. Because they also sold Tomori, which I didn't really understand. They're still not really giving much of their youth chances other than Chalobah. They might only be fleeting chances. He's probably going to get spat out on loan, and we'll see how that really goes. And I've just realised I've been streaming for 37 minutes. I've managed to talk kind of for that amount of time, and I really need a drink of water. Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace are probably the best transfer window here, with the exception of Manchester United, but we'll get onto that later. Now, Crystal Palace, they signed Conor Gallagher on loan, who I think is excellent. Scored 2 against West Ham the other day and really developed a lot during his loan period at West Brom. It's the exact sort of transfer that both him and Crystal Palace probably needed to match the kind of young, hungry team that Patrick Vieira is going for. That's much more fluid, that's much more attacking, that's much less safe and balanced than something like Roy Hodgson's. Now, obviously, they did release a lot of players, the most notable of which probably was Scott Dan and Gary Cahill. Cahill, who's now gone to Bournemouth, and Dan, who's now gone to Reading. And talking of Reading, time's up. It's now time to tell you where Danny Drinkwater went to on loan. Now, Danny Drinkwater, as you probably guessed, he went to Reading, which I don't really understand because it's in the Championship. But as long as he uses it well, I can't see how he's not going to succeed there. And as long as he doesn't do what he did at Aston Villa or Burnley, or in the Chelsea reserve team, then he should be good. He should be fine. Crystal Palace, as I say, I think if they signed a better player, I don't really know if they could have had a better transfer window than this with their limited kind of budgets, and with the amount of net spend they actually had. They had one of the highest net spends in the league, which is amazing to think about the fact that they're Crystal Palace. And I think that Crystal Palace signed Odsonne Edouard from Celtic, who I kind of thought was going to get a Premier League move for a while. He's definitely very, very physical, uses his target man kind of physicality to disrupt defences, and can really do quite well in that sense. For Crystal Palace, I think he'd be excellent up front with Zaha. And they really use both of their physicalities and their kind of respective attitudes to disrupt defenses and really play around with that sort of aspect. Chelsea also managed to get rid of Mark Guehi to Crystal Palace, who has actually done. I think he could be quite good, but I'd say he is still too expensive and too unproven. I guess it's the sort of wildcard transfer that Patrick Vieira would go for, having spent years at OGC Nice coaching and kind of in a bit of a precarious position with Crystal Palace. He, according to some sites, is the favourite to get sacked, and that is ahead of Xisco Munoz. Watford, am I right? But yeah, there's definitely something to say about how they're going to kind of survive and stay up. And I'll get onto that when I get to the tier list, but I've already been streaming for 40 minutes. I'll probably be streaming till 10 o'clock, 10:30, and that's if my voice holds. So watch this stream while you can. So what was that? I was like a duck. I was like, but I definitely think that Crystal Palace are an interesting team more than anything. They've also signed Michael Olise from Reading. Not from Reading, sorry. From Reading. From Reading. They've signed Michael Olise from Reading, who I think could really function quite well with Edouard, Zaha, and probably Eze as well when he returns from injury. I think a front four of those four could be really quite interesting to kind of break up the Premier League and move Crystal Palace's place around a bit, whether for the better, I don't know. Totally depends on how Patrick Vieira intends to coach, what the players think, whether he goes full Phil Brown and kind of disrupts the entire mentality of the team. I don't think he'll do that. But yeah. Next up, I think we now have to talk about Leon Bailey. No, I'm joking. But Leon Bailey did go to Aston Villa, and this is something that I kind of forgot to talk about a little bit. He is currently injured, so we haven't really seen a lot of him. But from what we have seen of him through fleeting substitute appearances, he has actually done quite well. And I think that's all we can really say about him on this front. We've got a few other clubs that I'd like to talk about first, though. I think Everton could be really quite they could be interesting this season. Now, obviously, with he who must not be named being suspended, and if you've not heard this story, yeah, and with Rafa Benitez incoming, I think there's definitely going to be apparently Salomon Rondon has signed for Everton on the deadline day, which I found to be quite not necessarily interesting, but more the fact that they'd probably be buried together in the same coffin. They have literally followed each other to club and country. Well, not to country, but to club. You get my point. And Everton have only really signed Damari Gray for £1.6 million, and nobody really other than that. I know they signed Andros Townsend, but that was just on a free from Crystal Palace. I didn't really know what to make of that at the time. I know it was just an emergency kind of transfer in the wake of the story of he who must not be named. And yeah, I don't know how Everton will do. I think Rafa could grind out a good little finish, but with James Rodriguez looks set to leave at some point, whether in January or another time, with Rafa not really wanting to play him and basically outright telling him that he's not needed. I really don't know what to make of Everton. I think next up, we've now got to talk a little bit about. We've got to talk a little bit about. Sorry, I've just been talking for ages and ages and ages. Next, I think it's okay if we talked about Leeds in the sense that I think that they definitely need to be. I think they're definitely quite interesting. They've signed Junior Firpo as a replacement for Egjan Alioski. Now, I think Firpo could do quite well in the sense that he was on the books of Barcelona. I don't think there would be a way that he is not going to succeed as long as he gets the adequate game time. We haven't really seen him get much game time yet. And I know you might say, but no, Leeds were horrible defensively, and a lot of the time they didn't really seem too confident and assured. But I'm pretty sure you're only saying that off the back of on the back of the fact that you both. Does J55 says read comments? Okay, quick point. No, I don't. I only read them when I have to remove them because some of these aren't that good. But yeah. So I'd like to quick segue from Leeds, really, because Leeds haven't really signed a lot. I've already talked about Dan James kind of at length. I think he could be really good. I think he sees the system, and I think he flourishes under Bielsa. Bam. And there isn't much more to say about Leeds. So we're going to go to Leicester next. Now, Leicester are... I'd say that they probably have the best financial management of all the clubs in this list. And this isn't just this transfer window. I'd say it's probably every single transfer window since the new owners took charge, and basically since they won the Premier League. I think all of the transfer windows have been really financially secure. And this includes this one. Now, on this transfer window, they signed Ryan Bertrand on a free from Southampton, who could be doing quite well, and I think really has the potential to almost just lead the defense and to kind of coach some of the younger players at Southampton. And I know you don't primarily look for coaches; you look for players first and coaches second, or mentors second. But I think Ryan Bertrand could be really good in that role. And in addition to that, you signed Boubakary Soumaré from Lille, I think it was, as a midfielder in case you lost somebody like Yuri Tielemans. Now, similarly to Brighton, I think these two could. I think this is kind of lucky that Tielemans didn't go elsewhere, but he still did really quite. I think they could really solidify down a bit of a partnership, and he was signed for not a lot at all. I think he was only signed for about £15 million, but I don't know that. I can't remember. I have researched this stream, I swear. And in addition to that, Patson Daka could be good. I guess they do need a replacement for Vardy, and somebody to fill in squad depth, which perhaps suggested a sale of Jose Perez that never went through. But I guess they could now revert to 3 at the front, which might work, but you might have to put wingers in there as well. So I don't really know where the place for Daka necessarily is, unless Vardy retires tomorrow, or unless you sell Perez elsewhere. So I don't know. I think there's definitely a point to be made that I don't think Leicester are necessarily going to challenge for Champions Leagues. Necessarily, the fact that I don't think they're going to challenge for Champions League qualification. I think that the transfers every other club has made, or every other top 4 club has made, really just, and as well as their existing squads, especially their squad depth, definitely it definitely tends to just outbalance Leicester a lot more. But I think Leicester are still a really interesting club, a really likeable club as well, who could all do really well. They could be outside shots at the Champions League, but even then, only last year they missed out by a whisker. I know that, but they only missed out by a whisker because Liverpool were in quite a bad injury crisis for the season. And next up, speaking of Liverpool, we are going to talk about the Reds. Now, Liverpool haven't really signed much. They haven't even signed a midfield replacement for Wijnaldum. They've only really signed Konate from RB Leipzig, who could be good, but I think we'll need a few months to settle in under the guidance of kind of Van Dijk. And Van Dijk and Gomez have only just recovered from injury as well, which could be a bit of a problem because they might get injured again. Who knows? And that's going to be the only real point where Konate can really prove himself. Other than that, Liverpool haven't really done much other than get rid of a few youngsters like Ethan Ennis to Man United. So I don't know. Liverpool they are going to get fourth. They're going to get fourth. And it's kind of because of their transfer window and the fact that they've refused to spend any money, but they're hardly from the worst in this regard, because I'd argue that the worst are yet to come. For this video, I'd argue that the worst are probably Wolves, who we're going to get on to talking about later on. After Liverpool, I think Man United need to be talked about. Now, Man United have probably had the best transfer window of the whole lot, and that is not an understatement. I'm a United fan, and I know what constitutes a good window and what doesn't. Now, obviously, everybody was hyped when in a similar sort of situation, the Glazers signed a lot of players from Mourinho, like Mkhitaryan, like Pogba, like Ibrahimovic. But I think this window does outdo that, mainly because of the prices that you've signed stars such as Sancho, Varane, Ronaldo for, and Tom Heaton. Let's not forget Tom Heaton. I think that this does show a clear level of ambition. If not now, then probably next season. And I definitely think that they could do quite well. Based off of this, they might even be challenging for the league title. We'll get on to that kind of soon. But United have just had a really good window, and coupled together with something of Dan James to reimburse some of those costs. I'd say if you sold a few more periphery players like Lingard, probably like Phil Jones, maybe even buy, then we could potentially do quite well, and the Glazers could sign. They could make some more funds available. We could sign some more players. I think it's really crunch time for Ole right now. City, their window has really been dominant on the fact that they signed Grealish. Now, Grealish, I'm not really sure what to make of Grealish because he has got an assist, but assists don't really mean much. You can do anything to get an assist. Even goalkeepers were getting assists last season. Sam Johnston got like more assists than Dele Alli. It doesn't really mean anything. And Grealish has been a bit inconsistent. I think 100 million is way too much, as put over in my Grealish video. They haven't really signed anybody other than Grealish, other than Kaiki from Fluminense, who is a youngster. Might be another one for the future, but I think they're really just kitted out in every single position. They don't necessarily need to sign any more players, but they feel the urge to, kind of just to put the onus on other clubs and as a way of getting soft power in kind of not only the Football League pyramid, but also just wider influence across the world. Because I'd argue that still, despite the fact that City have basically all the money in the world, I'd say that United are more brandable. And I'd say that I'd say that United and Liverpool are still more brandable, so I don't know what to make of City. Maybe they are just going for soft power. Maybe they're just spending money for the sake of it, or maybe they're just spending money to make a statement of intent. We're spending money and we're not going to stop. Turning to a club now that doesn't really spend money, we've got Newcastle. Now, the only real major Newcastle signing was Joe Willock from Arsenal, who did do quite well and probably did save you from relegation last season. Could be a really good signing to pay for that, or to pay for him, and to mainly just get some players off your books. I think you definitely could have sold a few players that you released, but you did choose to get rid of Yoshinori Muto, Matthew Longstaff, Florian Lejeune. I think they might be running a bit low on squad depth now, but they definitely did need to release some players such as Muto, who were just eating up wage bills at the club. I think this is not necessarily a shrewd move. It's just a move that has common sense. So they've not really gone for any particular big names. They also released Andy Carroll. I feel as though he's going to be quite a good one for a few championship clubs. He did okay last season, but only okay. Not Premier League quality, at least not anymore. Next up, I think Norwich have signed, I think, 12 players. The most notable of which probably Milot Rashica and Josh Sargent. Now, these two are both strikers, and I think they could do quite well. Definitely as long-term replacements for Timu Pukki and Jordan Hugel, who's now been sent on loan to West Brom. But it's quite a big gamble, especially on Sargent. It's quite a big gamble. They've also signed Ozan Kabak on loan from Schalke. Obviously, he had a spell last year with Liverpool where he ended up doing not too great. I'd say that his first debut performances were some of the worst defensive performances that many will have seen in terms of Liverpool. But I feel as though he can still develop. As long as he can have that time, have that support structure around him to build up his confidence after being relegated in embarrassing fashion with Schalke, I think he's definitely got a lot of scope to improve. Other than that, Norwich signed a few other players. I think they might be enough to keep them up, but it's here and there. I don't really know what exactly is going to happen with Norwich. As they say, they've now given Daniel Farke the tools to kind of not be relegated. And they've definitely got options as to squad depth and things. They've now got Todd Cantwell coming through as well. So there is that. I don't really know. So then I'm just going to skip through the rest of them because this stream is about to hit an hour and I've not really even finished yet. Or I might make the prediction video for the league into a different video. I think there's definitely a case to be made. I think there's definitely a case to be made for the likes of Spurs doing okay this season under Nuno Espirito Santo. I think Nuno Espirito Santo is quite underrated as a coach, and he has got the team playing for him now, and they did sign Emerson. Quite good. I think Europa League is going to be the sort of where they get to. But I have just realised in more urgent news that I have forgotten Burnley. Now, Burnley, they have been a bit more they've been a bit more ambitious than they usually are. They usually go for two no-nonsense players, like Dale Stephens and Will Norris is what they did last season. This season, it kind of looked to be a bit similar with Nathan Collins coming in from Stoke. I know he's young, so he's kind of ambitious long-term signing, kind of a replacement for Ben Mee as he ages. But they were still quite two no-nonsense players that you were fully kind of expecting to join the club. Nothing unexpected, nothing particularly ambitious. and Wayne Hennessy in particular was just a vehicle for Bailey Peacock-Farrell to leave the club on loan. But then after that, I think things kind of picked up. Now, they picked up Conor Roberts, the wing back from Swansea, for I think only £2.5 million, which is a small amount in modern football, a very, very small amount, and I think they could do really well out of Roberts, especially as a replacement for somebody like Charlie Taylor or Matt Lawson, both of which are either edging towards or are north of 30. I think they could do really well as kind of successors to that. And I mean Roberts and also Maxwell Cornet, who people are saying is the strangest transfer that Burnley have ever made. But I don't really think so. Like, yeah, I know he was signed for a club record fee, but I think now is the time where Burnley are going to start being a bit more ambitious. They've cemented themselves as a top flight club, and they're definitely going to go. They're definitely going to go places. They might even go on a European adventure. Who knows? I mean, Fulham did it, Middlesbrough did it, and Wolves were going to do it. So, yeah, and talking of Wolves, after Spurs, there aren't really many others to talk about. Wolves, West Ham, Watford, there aren't particularly many. Let me know if I've forgotten the club. I've forgotten Southampton, now that I remember. So Southampton, all they've really done is get rid of Ings and replace him with Adam Armstrong from Blackburn, who could be quite good. He scored, which is quite a good sign. But to be fair, William scored on the opening day of the season last season, so I don't really know how it bodes. Now, Southampton have signed Romain Perraud as a replacement for Ryan Bertrand, who has gone to Leicester. Now, that might have been a transfer that you might have missed, but I think it could be quite an important one. They've also sold Yanik Vestergaard to Leicester as well, who was arguably their star defender last season. And they have also replaced him. All they've really done is just balance in the ring goings with outgoings, which honestly isn't so much of a bad thing, as long as it builds confidence within the squad after that terrible, hideous 9-0 defeat to United, which I was very happy about. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl has a job on his hands to build confidence among the squad, to kind of fix its holes. He needs to get the patching trowel out, so to speak, and he needs to fix the gaps in which the squad is either aging or develop its younger players or do something along those lines. I think he might have the resources to do so. Maybe not in this current climate, considering COVID and everything, but I think Ralph Hasenhüttl is starting to build something at Southampton, which could bode quite well for them in the future, but we'll just have to see how that goes. Next up, West Ham are quite important in the race for Europe. I'd say they're still contentious because nobody was really counting on them to do Europe again. I think they're probably going to get Europa Conference League football, Europa League a push. But most people were backing them to finish in 13th. And honestly, I was as well until they announced the signing yesterday of Nikola Vlasic, who could be quite a good kind of replacement for the lone Jesse Lingard. And they've also signed Alex Kral from Spartak Moscow, who I don't really know a lot about, but they do have a good record from shopping from players who have been at Slavia Prague, and especially Czech players with Souček and Koufal, and I think they could work quite well on the same team and mesh quite nicely. Apparently, Souček had something to do with this transfer. As agent Souček, he stubbed himself, so I feel as though it could be quite a key transfer for West Ham. Another key transfer for West Ham would probably be Kurt Zuma from Chelsea. Now, Kurt Zuma was let out of Chelsea for about £29 million. I think, or it might have been 29 million euros. I'll have to check that. But Zuma really did do. He lays down a precedent for the West Ham project. Yeah, I know he's not the youngest defender necessarily. He's not like Chaloba or even somebody like Ethan Ampadu. But he definitely lays down the level of ambition, regardless of age. A player of his quality is going to do quite well. And obviously, he was brought in as a replacement for kind of the lone Craig Dawson. I think he's definitely a key signing for West Ham, and he could even carry them into Europe along with Kral and with Vlasic. Apparently, Weston McKennie was offered to Burnley now. I think about weird transfers as well. I mean, he could learn a lot from Jack Cork. But another weird transfer, now that I think about it, about West Ham, was apparently that they were getting linked to Tagliafico, who I really rate. I think he could have been a key signing for West Ham, especially in the kind of position of Aaron Cresswell, who's aging and was injured for a bit last season. They didn't get him, but I think it's been a good enough transfer window to compensate for that. I'm sorry if I'm boring you half to death, by the way. I'm just trying to speak. I'm trying to speak eloquently. I'm trying to speak without saying I'm trying to speak to such an extent that it shows that I'm trying. I'm having a go. I know this is my only first stream, but yeah. West Ham, after that we have Wolves. Now, Wolves have probably had the most underwhelming transfer window of the whole lot. Now, I know they transferred in more players than City, Chelsea, and a few other clubs, and Liverpool as well. And you might be thinking, well, Josh, they transferred in more. They got Trinsauen from Barcelona. He's very good. He's very young. He's a replacement for Raul Jimenez. But yeah, he's only on loan. Might not make that much of a difference. Kind of reminds me a bit of Fabio Silva, and that doesn't really bode well. They tried to plug the same gap kind of with Jose last season, and that didn't really work well either. Bruno Lage, I didn't really understand, didn't know who he was, and didn't seem like much of an inspired employment looking at his CV, but he has been playing some good attacking football. I know they're winless right now, but they did do quite well against Man United the other day, and honestly, were quite unlucky to lose that game. So I think Wolves might do well, but they're not going to be carried into it by any particular new transfers because they haven't really made any new transfers. All they've really done is brought in Jose Sarr for Rui Patricio, which I kind of understand as Patricio was aging, but at the same time, a goalkeeper, age doesn't really matter with a goalkeeper. You've got Buffon, for instance, who's 43. You've got people like Kasper Schmeichel in the Premier League still, who are like 36. So I think it's quite an important comparison to make in that case. They didn't necessarily have to get rid of Patricio to replace him with Sarr. And I think they definitely could have spent more in that window. The final club I want to talk about before I end this stream, because I understand that it's getting a bit late, barely anybody's watching, which I completely understand. This is my first stream, and I've got a bit of a sore throat myself, is Watford, and I've left them till last because this is the club that I think probably have the most chance of getting relegated. I think that despite the amount of signings they've made, none of them really bring any sort of substance. I know they signed Emmanuel Dennis and probably Danny Rose on a free, but I don't think those two will make that much difference. I think they needed to sign another goalkeeper because Ben Foster's injured. I know they're playing Brackman right now, but they definitely needed to sign another keeper. They definitely needed a bit more squad depth in other areas, and it's kind of it's a similar situation to what Norwich had 2 years ago, where they just didn't have enough squad depth to carry them really through it. And in addition to that, I don't think they've really been ambitious. They're just building a team that would do well in the Championship next season. But at the end of that, I'm going to do my predictions probably in another video, not in a stream. And I don't feel like doing it now because it's like 10 o'clock while I'm recording this. I'm quite tired and I've got a bit of a sore throat. Thank you to the one person who's still watching this stream, because I'm pretty sure most of you will have A, gone to bed, or B, had dinner or something. Right now, I've enjoyed listening to me. I know I've just waffled fairly emotionlessly, as I'd probably sound, for the last hour and 10. But I don't know. I've tried. It's my first stream. Let's just see how it goes. Let's just have a bit of fun with it. Thank you, everybody who's commented. Even if you have decided to comment on the Cheeto versus Doritos war, which, yeah. And I hope everybody has a nice day. I'll be doing some other videos soon, but I don't really know when. I've got a few other ideas, but we'll see how it goes. Just wanted to say thank you for watching the stream, really.